Hello, this is BBC News. I'm Martine CROXALL. In a few minutes, we'll be taking a look at tomorrow's papers with our guest Kieran Stacey, political correspondent with the Financial Times, and journalist and blogger Susie Boniface. Well, many of the front pages are already in. We'll take a look at those. The Independent reports on a major study that shows that students from state schools are more likely to achieve top-grade degree passes than those from the independent sector with the same A-level results. The Financial Times has a joint article by the Chancellor and his German counterpart, which says any EU treaty change must guarantee fairness for EU countries that stay outside the Eurozone. The Telegraph reports that savers who are locked into pensions and investments could be given a free exit. There's more on the probe into energy prices on the front of the Daily Mirror. Daily Express says that millions of people will be better off after the government announced a cap on pension charges. Ed Miliband's calls for further curbs on energy bills makes the lead in The Guardian. And the Mail has the news that cats have passed on TB to humans for the first time. Now on BBC News, the weather forecast with Nick Miller. Hello, welcome to our look ahead to what the papers will be bringing us tomorrow. With us are Kieran Stacey, political correspondent at the Financial Times, and journalist and blogger Susie Boniface, aka the Fleet Street Fox.
To just go, well, we're going to stop investing in power plants, we're going to stop providing it, and therefore we're going to, we can do what we like. And a lot of these companies are based abroad as well. Their central offices are elsewhere, so they're not necessarily under our control. I genuinely believe there should be some way that supply of our fuel is a matter of national interest, national security to some extent, and we should be able to provide it should be the government's responsibility to provide our power plants and our nuclear power stations and so on, and have a nationalised industry providing fuel that then...
How would that help us as consumers?
Well, the wholesale arms. Yeah. So what they're doing, says this is the accusation, and actually privately a lot of energy company bosses admit this is true. What they're doing is they're overcharging their retail arm so that the wholesale arm makes bumper profits.
We've seen for many years since there was this deregulation of power supply. Aren't you inevitably going to have bigger companies emerging, even if you sort of break prices up?
They all do.
Yeah, and they call it back down again. They don't bring them back down. They cannot tell us how much they're paying for their energy.
The main problem is greed. It's them saying we have a product that is absolutely vital to all of you. It's something everybody needs in one form or another, whether it's gas or oil or electricity. Everybody in the country needs it to live and to survive. Well, we're going to start charging you whatever the hell we like. That's the fundamental problem. This is not seen as a service, it's seen as a business. And if there was one part of it which we retained on a national basis and said, well, this is the service, the provision of fuel is a service to our people that we should be paying for, it won't work either.
Somebody on Twitter did mention that there's I don't know which part of the country they're in, but there is a social enterprise that is set up to provide power, to provide energy.
This is threatening and
something else that will be music to a lot of people's ears. Bigger pension payouts on their way. Millions will get an extra £35,000.
In fact, this cap only applies to those people who are going to be automatically enrolled in a workplace pension under the new government scheme called auto-enrolment, which basically means now if you enter the workplace, your company's
out living on a pension, £35,000 is going to be very welcome.
It's going to make a big difference, yeah, if you're going to be surviving a pension for 30 or 40 years, if any of us ever get to draw our pension, of course. But what's interesting about this is there's the same as the annuity announcement in the budget. Big pension companies are losing £200 million a year. They're going to find a way to get that out of us again. They're not going to be prepared, these massive enterprises, to go...
Well, everything Kieran says... No, not really. Let's move on to the Daily Telegraph. Hillsborough police are questioned over deaths. This is 4 police officers have been interviewed under caution as potential manslaughter suspects.
You have 25 years to prepare for these possible interviews coming up as well. And this is 18 months, 2 years since the Hillsborough Independent Panel found that they had these questions to answer. I find it amazing it's still taking this long.
Yeah, it's glacially slow, you could say, couldn't you?
Yeah, it often is with the police.
Funny that.
Yeah, there are no...
Memories be accurate.
Of course they will.
To lower the bar for state pupils. A major study showing that state school students get better degrees than private school pupils.
B's at A-level. I would imagine the person who's got a B at A-level from the state schools worked harder, or at least been possibly more intelligent, and therefore already is at an advantage. It's just not reflected necessarily in their A-level results.
What happens after university, though? Does it matter?
Does it matter if you've been to
YouTube after leaked file discussing possible Syria clash. This is, of course, YouTube following on...
And Grant Shapps himself You know, it would be really interesting. I don't know how it could possibly work, but that's the thing with the internet. You either have, it's total democracy, and if you're operating a core deal.
Coming up next, it's time for Sports Day. This is BBC News. I'm Martine CROXALL. The headlines at 11. Good evening and welcome to BBC News. The UK's biggest energy companies are to face a full-scale investigation into the prices they charge. Ofgem, the industry regulator, has referred them to the Competition and Markets Authority. The investigation could take 18 months. Ofgem revealed that retail profit... Thousands of people are said to be at risk of harm because police in England and Wales are failing to tackle domestic abuse. A report by the Inspectorate of Constabulary says the response from many police forces is ineffective. The Home Secretary, Theresa May, says there needs to be radical change. Police chiefs say they're working to improve their response, despite funding cuts, as our correspondent June Kelly reports. The share of new mortgages where buyers are borrowing 4 times their income or more is rising. The Bank of England says it'll remain vigilant to prevent a dangerous bubble in the housing market. One reason is that prices in London and the South East have been boosted by cash buyers from abroad. Our economics editor Robert Peston reports. Your correspondent Eleanor Garnier is at Westminster for us tonight. Eleanor, is this a bit of support from Germany that's still up for debate?
Exactly right. Whilst Germany and Britain may...
Thank you very much. The conflict in Syria is still forcing many to flee their homes. So many have crossed to neighbouring Lebanon that they've boosted the population by a third. The number of UN-registered refugees is nearly 1 million, but the UN says it's received just 14% of the funding that it's been promised. Food and shelter are in short supply and some are resorting to extreme measures. This report by our correspondent Paul Wood contains distressing images. You're watching BBC News. These are our headlines. A whole range of products, from antibiotics to alternative fuels, could be produced more quickly and more cheaply thanks to a breakthrough in DNA technology. Scientists have produced the most complex synthetic DNA ever seen, involving synthetic DNA for yeast. As our science editor David Shookman explains, the possibilities are wide-ranging. Politicians from across the political spectrum have attended the funeral of Tony Benn in Westminster. The route to St Margaret's Church near the House of Commons was lined by many admirers from the trades unions. Among those who took part in the service was the Labour leader Ed Miliband. Our deputy political editor James Landell was there. Oops. Time for a look at the weather forecast now. We can cross the newsroom and join Darren for all the details.
Thanks very much indeed.